Well, y'all have been asking for it. So today we're going to begin breaking down the Delphi crimes. Hey everyone, it's Lucky with Unfiltered Lucky. And today we're going to begin breaking down the Delphi crimes. Now, a lot of y'all have been asking me to talk about the Delphi crimes, and I've wanted to talk about the Delphi crimes for a little while now, but I wanted to wait until I was in a position to really do a deep dive back into these Delphi crimes. Now, I say back into these Delphi crimes because I remember hearing about these crimes in 2017 when they first occurred. Now, these crimes were brutal, and there was a lot of twists and turns to this investigation, which seemed like it should have been a lot easier. This is a very small town. Delphi, Indiana is a town of 3,000 people. So this is a very, very tight-knit community. They had video of the suspect, they had a voice recording of the suspect, and they had witnesses. So it appeared that this crime was going to be solved rather quickly. But as the years went by, law enforcement really hindered this investigation, in my opinion, in a lot of ways. And we're going to talk about that. You know, this is going to be a series of videos because there's a lot of information to unpack here. So today, we're going to begin talking about the background. Now, if you're watching this video, you're probably already following the Delphi crimes. But if you're not familiar with the Delphi crimes, I'm going to give you a little bit of the backstory of these crimes, which is where I like to begin. I always like to begin right in the very beginning. Now, Abby Williams, who is 13 years old, and Libby German, who was 14 years old, were best friends living in the small town of Delphi, Indiana. Now, they enjoyed doing the same things that most young girls enjoy doing. They enjoyed social networks. They enjoyed playing sports. They enjoyed music, and they loved art. So they were living in this small town of a population of 3,000 people in Delphi, Indiana. Now, on February 13th of 2017, Abby and Libby had the day off from school. The weather would normally be extremely cold in February in Delphi, Indiana. But this day was surprisingly really nice outside. So the girls wanted to get outside and explore a little bit. So they had made plans to go to the Manon High Bridge, which is a place where Libby has gone quite a few times. And Libby and her sister, Kelsey, would go there to take pictures and to hike the trails and just be outdoors. So a lot of people from Delphi went to the Manon High Bridge as well as the Freedom Bridge. They went out there to walk the trails and get some fresh air and just get outside. There was never any fear that something bad could happen out there. This was a small town. So the people who lived in this town, they thought, what could happen? Now, Libby asked her sister Kelsey if she would like to go along with them that day. Now, Kelsey, who's Libby's older sister, she had plans that day, but she said that she would be willing to drop the girls off at the Manon High Bridge, and they had arranged so that Libby's dad would pick them up. So Kelsey dropped Libby and Abby off at the Manon High Bridge trail. Now, she dropped them off at approximately 1:35 p.m. So Abby and Libby walked the trail, and eventually they ended up on the Manon High Bridge, which it's a pretty high bridge. It looks rather rickety. It's an old train bridge, and it's pretty high up in the air, and it looks pretty rickety. But this is an area where a lot of these locals go to get away and get into the outdoors. They do a lot of photo shoots at the Manon High Bridge. So it's a very scenic area where people like to get out and hike. Now, Abby and Libby end up on the bridge, and they're walking across the bridge. And now the way that the Manon High Bridge is set up is that there's a trail leading to the Manon High Bridge. But on the other side of the bridge, basically the forest has grown into that area. So there's really no trail on the back side of the bridge. Now, Abby and Libby, as they're walking across the bridge, they're making videos for Snapchat, and they're taking pictures, and they're basically just enjoying the scenery and making some videos and taking some pictures for their social networks. Now, at approximately 3:15 that day, so you're talking about an hour and 40 minutes after Kelsey dropped them off at the trail, Libby's dad shows up to pick them up. Well, when he gets there, they're not there waiting for him. So he waits for a little while, and then he decides he's going to get out and go look for them. He doesn't feel as though anything bad has happened. He thinks that maybe they lost track of time and they're out exploring. So he doesn't have any bad feelings at this point that something might have happened to Abby and Libby. So he gets out and he begins searching for Abby and Libby. Now, he also calls family members to come out and help, because he believes there's a possibility that one of them maybe could have fallen and hurt themselves, and maybe they're unable to return back to the trail. But never does he consider the idea that something really bad could have happened. So the family continues looking for Abby and Libby until approximately 5 o'clock, when they call law enforcement and they report Abby and Libby missing. Now, this is less than 4 hours after Kelsey has dropped them off at the trail. But now the family's getting worried because it's not like Abby and Libby to not be there to meet her dad to pick her up. So law enforcement comes out to the area and people begin searching this area. And as law enforcement is going to the neighbors' homes and going, talking to people in this area, those people also begin to join in the search. So a lot of people are out looking for Abby and Libby. Now, they finally call the search off at almost midnight because they believe that searching around in the dark in this area could be very dangerous for the people who are for the search party. So they call off the search for the night. Now, the next morning, they wake up and begin their search immediately. So they're all out at the site and they're searching for Abby and Libby, and there's no sign of them. There's no sign of Abby and Libby anywhere around this bridge. So finally, just after noon, law enforcement announces that they have found the bodies of Libby and Abby. They're not far from the bridge. They're located in an area on Deer Creek, which is it's a really heavily wooded area where they're located. Now, the crime scene is odd. The victims' bodies have allegedly been staged. So whoever took their lives staged their bodies. And there were a series of branches placed over their bodies, and they were placed in a design or formation. Now, there was a lot of strange details as to the clothing that they were wearing, the clothing that they weren't wearing, how their bodies were placed. They were laying right next to each other. And we're going to get into all of these details in future videos. As we go, we're going to break these details down and break this crime down so that we can get a better idea of what could have possibly happened. Now, the crime scene was gruesome. And there were a lot of strange aspects of this crime scene. There were people who were out on this trail during this time. In between 1:30 and 3:30, there were people out on this trail. There was 3 other young girls out walking the trail and walking, on the bridges. There were other hikers and other individuals out in this area walking the trail. Now, Libby's phone is found at the crime scene. And on this phone, law enforcement finds a video. Libby is filming Abby walking across the bridge. And in the very back of this photo, in the very beginning of the bridge, there's a man. And this man is walking toward the girls in the distance. Now, Libby, people believe, thought that something was very strange about this situation, which is why Libby was filming this man and kept her phone recording, because she was actually able to record this man's voice. And you can hear this man say, "Down the hill." He's ordering the girls down the hill. I remember when I first heard this detail, I remember thinking about Libby and thinking about how strong this little girl was, because she knew this wasn't going to be a good situation. But she was brave enough to continue recording, to possibly leave clues. Very brave of Libby to do that. Very brave of both of these girls, because they could have split up. They could have ran 2 different directions. But they didn't. They stuck together and ultimately lost their lives together. Now, there's been people of interest in this case. This happened it's been almost 7 years since these crimes happened. Now we have a suspect in custody, Richard Allen. Now, Richard Allen went to law enforcement immediately after these crimes occurred. And he informed law enforcement that he was in this area, that he was on this trail. At the same time that Abby and Libby were on this trail. Now, Richard, he mentions the other 3 young girls that he saw on the trail. And the 3 young girls also mention him. Now, he's described as wearing baggy jeans, a dark blue or black goose down style coat, and possibly a hat, which is exactly what the man in Libby's video was wearing. So, Richard Allen is basically wearing the same exact clothes as the man that Libby filmed on the bridge. Now, did the man who was on the bridge know that Libby was filming him on the bridge? That's a question that we're going to find out. Now, Richard Allen went to law enforcement, told them he was at this trail, left, and never heard from law enforcement again for almost 5 years. 5 years. The man that basically walked into the police department and informed them that he was basically the man on the bridge. But they never went back to him. Now, they say that it was a filing error, which is the reason that they never followed up on Richard Allen. He went to the police station, basically told them he was the man on the bridge, and then didn't hear from law enforcement for almost 5 years. 5 years. Now, Richard Allen was arrested in October of last year. And this court case has been a mess. It's a mess. It's a circus. There's been twists and turns, and it's a circus. And we're going to talk about all of these details. We're going to talk about the people of interest. Because you have to remember, this is a very small town. It's a very small, close-knit town. This area is well known to locals and to the people who live in this area. Now, law enforcement believed that the individual who took Abby and Libby's lives was in this town, was possibly walking around the people of this town every day. Now, there were a few discrepancies with the descriptions. Now, the description that they released in the very beginning in 2017 when the crimes first occurred from Libby's video was different from the picture they put out 2 years later. 2 years later, they put out a picture of a younger man who really looked nothing like the first picture. So that was kind of confusing. And it led people to believe that there was definitely more than one suspect. Now, there's a lot of people who believe that one individual would not have been able to stage Abby and Libby's bodies in the way in which they were staged. And we're going to talk about all of these details and how the girls were found. It was a very strange scene when the girls were found, and we're going to talk about all that. We're going to dive into all of this. But that's the backstory. It's a very simple backstory, a lot of details. I've left out a lot of details. But we're going to cover all of those details, and we're going to pick this crime apart. And we're going to take a look at everything using common sense and critical thinking. So stay tuned for my next videos. We're going to cover this crime in a number of videos. And we're going to touch on all of these controversial aspects of this crime. And we're going to break it down. So stay tuned for my next video. And please like and please subscribe to my channel if you like my content. I really appreciate it. We'll see you soon.